Every morning when I wake up, I tell myself 2 mantras. The first mantra, I will work with the smartest people in the world. My second mantra, I will change the world. 2 very simple ideas, but very powerful when executed. Now I have to admit, at the time, I didn't know how I was going to work with the smartest people in the world, let alone how I was going to change the world. But I kept telling myself this over and over again. I would talk to myself. I'd say, Clint, you're going to work with the smartest people in the world, and you're going to change the world. Clint, you're going to work with the smartest people in the world. You're going to change the world. I was convincing myself it will happen through repetition. Within 5 years of taking action and practicing my daily mantra, I built my first successful company into a powerhouse in the staffing and recruiting world, earning the ranking of the 5th fastest growing HR company in the nation, making the Inc. 500 fastest growing private companies, and having close to 1,000 employees. I was working with executives that ran billion-dollar organizations in aerospace, food, automotive, electronics, and technology. And as time passed by, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was living and experiencing my first mantra. I was working with some of the smartest people in the world. My company has one division that focuses in a particular area, agriculture. I developed a passion for agriculture after I unexpectedly received a very rare and special invitation to visit the Amazon in Peru and study plants with the Shipibo tribe. That's when I fell in love with plants and their healing abilities. Before that, the scope of my experience with plants, kind of entailed rolling joints in the back of my high school parking lot. Sorry, Mom. I love you. But seriously speaking, we're a nation founded on farming. And I found an application to use my extensive experience with plant medicine to change the world for the better. And no. I'm not talking about my experience with purple haze or edibles. Sorry, Mom. I'm talking about using cannabis responsibly for medicinal needs, because I believe in the power of happy and healthy people. My vision is to help the world experience the benefits of cannabis. I asked myself, how can we help cannabis companies flourish on a large scale? You see the difference between global industries today and that of current cannabis companies? Is that global industries utilize platforms that center around managing their human resources, their very own people. So I asked myself, what if we build a revolutionary comprehensive HR platform that could legitimize the illicit cannabis industry? Can this change the world? Can this satisfy my second mantra? It got me thinking even farther. Instead of using my experience to create some proprietary platform, I decided to do what Elon Musk did at Tesla. On June 12th of 2014, Elon Musk made an unprecedented move of opening all of its electric car patents to outside use. It's a time when you have Apple and Samsung spending billions of dollars in legal costs to secure their patents, all while Elon is just giving his away for free. A lot of investors in Wall Street thought this move was ludicrous, dangerous, crazy. But it serves a much, much, much greater purpose. It serves his mission to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. So I'm standing here today to try and help the cannabis industry in the same way. Now, imagine trying to build a company, in this case, a cannabis business, where you are selling a registered Schedule I controlled drug. Here are some of the registered Schedule I controlled drugs that the government itemizes. Methamphetamine, heroin was before that, and now you have cannabis. Now that you know what you're up against, would you do it? How would you go about doing it? Dealing with the banking, the credit, the licensing. trying to find qualified employees? Today, if you're expecting to open a cannabis business, expect the capital requirements to be astronomical. And this isn't to discourage you, but to make you realize the current marketplace and regulatory issues that we face right now. The current market risks in cannabis include high regulatory and application costs, licensing costs, legal costs, compliance costs, insurance costs, distribution costs, security costs. You guys get the point, right? If you want to be in the cannabis industry, maybe you're interested in opening a dispensary. Or maybe you're interested in creating a delivery service. Or maybe you're a really great agriculturalist and you grow some amazing cannabis and all your friends tell you about how great it is. Whatever it is, it's for a great cause. But you're gonna need some help along the way. One of the first areas where you're probably gonna need some help in is payroll and taxes. Now, I'm not gonna bore you with the complexities of payroll and taxes. Actually, wait, I take that back. Payroll and taxes is totally boring. But the cannabis industry faces huge hurdles in this department, and it's really important to understand why. So today, if you're a cannabis business, you're most likely paying your taxes in cash and operating your business in cash. Today, it's estimated that cannabis businesses across the United States will owe $2.8 billion to Uncle Sam, according to New Frontier data. And if you pay those taxes in cash, the IRS reaps an additional $280 million in penalties and fees from you, meaning the government taxes you an additional 10% tax for paying your taxes in cash. That's a lot of cash. House is not bought, vacations not taken, and Ferrari's not driven, my friends. But wait a second. Is that what the cannabis industry is really about? Is it really about buying fancy houses and taking fancy vacations and driving Ferraris? No, it's not. The cannabis industry is about exercising our divine right to wellness and having the access to the medicine that we so dearly need. And because it's still illegal, the federal government is the real Al Capone of our era. Today, cannabis businesses lack the internal accounting and finance infrastructure because the system is predicated on cash. So to establish and grow your business, you're gonna have to find and navigate those waters. Find some way that you can process your payroll, some way that you can bank your cash and hopefully not pay your taxes in cash. Now, you may think that banks won't open an account for you because, well, cannabis is illegal, right? And you're right. I challenge you, go down to your local Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America. They're not gonna open an account for you. However, we found that banking your cash can be accomplished through state chartered banks. State chartered banks that operate in legalized states are banking cannabis cash right now. And they're not gonna tell you because they're not advertising about it. And they're not going to until it's federally legal. However, some of the largest banks in the world are banking cannabis cash right now through their state subsidiary charter banks. So if you can't find a bank to operate in, then try and navigate those waters and find a way that you can somehow run your payroll without paying your employees in cash, paying your taxes not in cash, and trying to increase your legitimized expenses for your cannabis business. This will greatly improve what matters most in any business, which is your bottom line. The next area where you're going to need some help in is workers' compensation and insurance. Now, here's the funny thing. How does that work? Can you go about insuring something that's federally illegal? Well, insurance companies will actually insure anything, trust me. But because the cannabis industry is a new industry, insurance companies lack the data to predict risk, predominantly workers' compensation risk. You know, when I first started working with cannabis companies, I would ask them a technical question. I'd say, what would you do in the event an employee got seriously injured at work? Tell me about your illness injury prevention program and the steps that you would take to get them back to work. The response? Crickets. I'd go back to them and I'd say, Do you know what the government would do in the event that you don't have the proper insurance and programs in place? They would roll their eyes and look back at me, and I'd tell them, fines for not having the proper insurance and programs in place can cost you up to $100,000 in occupational health and safety fines. It's known as OSHA, and they're some of the harshest in the nation. I'll share with you another tip. When looking for insurance, try not to go through the state fund. Try to go to outside services that can harbor your risk for cheaper and protect yourself against liability. This can be found through the private markets if they're insuring it, through professional employer organizations, or even staffing companies that can underwrite the liability for you. Okay, the third area where you're going to need some help is through staffing and recruiting. Unlike other industries where you can go find credible and reliable employees, the cannabis industry lacks the staffing and recruitment platforms to help you source quality employees. It's not like these employees are on Monster or Career Builder or LinkedIn or ZipRecruiter. It's been a black market, right? So how do you go about finding them? Well, today there's over 300,000 job openings in the cannabis field, making it the nation's second largest job market. And with barely half the nation legalized, there's a tremendous void in our workforce in filling this demand. So the number one biggest hurdle is going to be you training the workforce to work in new processes of cultivation, extraction, laboratory and sciences, genetics, or research and development. How we train new employees for cannabis is by transitioning agriculture-based employees into cannabis, and by using some form of technology to help train and certify these employees in cannabis-specific processes. The next area we're going to need some help in is occupational health and safety and how it relates to corporate responsibility. That's a fancy way of saying HR compliance and safety. It starts with education on how to use the plant. And what I'm trying to describe to you is you need to use some type of set standard certified knowledge base to educate your staff on how to use cannabis responsibly. It would also educate your staff on cannabis manufacturing processes and regulatory requirements in a cannabis environment. You know, one of the many concerns of OSHA and insurance companies is they believe the majority of employees working in cannabis are stoners and potheads. You can see why they're reluctant to insure you. This just doesn't pertain to cannabis, though. When cannabis went legal in California, many of my clients in the aerospace, automotive, and manufacturing fields all had concerns how this was going to affect their workplace. If workers are inebriated while working with heavy machinery, it poses a huge threat to the safety of the employee, their coworkers, and the employer. And the truth is, they're probably right. If employees are operating in an environment where the product, in this case cannabis, is accessible, many of them are probably actively using it at the job. Just how we prohibit the use of alcohol while operating heavy machinery, we can't have workers operating machinery while under the influence of cannabis. So using some kind of an HR platform to educate cannabis usage will ultimately lead to a safer work environment. Another advantage to using a platform for your cannabis business is to vet new hires. And this just doesn't go for cannabis, this also goes for other corporations. When I hire a new employee, I predicate the job offer on the employee passing a drug test, right? Like the majority of other companies out there. Today, I'm going to change the way I drug test my own employees. Rather than testing for any and all substances of cannabis, I'm going to start testing for what cannabis compounds are actually in their system. There are two molecular cannabis compounds, CBD and THC. CBD is the non-psychoactive ingredient, doesn't get you high, and it doesn't affect the clarity of your own decisions. Therefore, why are we still testing for it? It's up to companies today to stop discriminating against those that use cannabis responsibly and start incorporating new THC drug testing models to vet and hire new employees. The fifth area where you're going to need some help in, and that can really change the world, is in healthcare. When an employee gets injured at work in any industry, like a slip, a fall, maybe even a broken bone. That employee is prescribed pain medication from a doctor. What if you made cannabis as an option in your healthcare plan? According to Kaiser Family Foundation, employers are spending nearly 9 times more to treat opioid addiction than they did 12 years ago. From $300 million in 2004 to $2.6 billion in 2016. This will cost employers up to $635 billion in medical costs and lost productivity costs. So today, injured workers are becoming addicted to opioids that are prescribed to help manage their pain. So let's look at the cycle of what occurs here, right? First, a worker is injured on the job. Second, a doctor prescribes opioids to manage the pain and the injury. Third, the doctor advises the employer and the worker that he or she is unfit to go back to work while being under the influence of opioids. Fourth, the employee becomes withdrawn from society, social, and working life, which often leads to greater dependency on the drug itself. And fifth, in the worst case scenario, the employee overdoses, and in some cases, dies. So employers want to prevent addiction, but have no choice but to send their worker to a doctor who prescribes them opioids. All while the alternative to a new solution in plant medicine is sitting right in front of our face. What I'm describing here today is self-insured healthcare. By incorporating cannabis into your healthcare plan, it provides employees with the access to the medicine that they need that is much safer. It also gives the tools and resources for that worker to become a happier and healthier worker, which leads to greater productivity in your workplace. So using an HR platform that can provide cannabis healthcare options will give them the access to the medicine that they need and help you reduce your turnover and, more importantly, increase your long-term retention. And the reason why I'm talking about it from this stage is because I hope that this will inspire other companies to incorporate cannabis into their HR models as a cannabis plant transcends and starts to reclaim its place as a teacher and, most importantly, as a healer. Currently, this doesn't exist. I'm trying to build it right now. And today, I'm challenging the big players like United Healthcare, Kaiser, Blue Cross, and others to incorporate cannabis into their healthcare plans. And you know what? I want you to challenge them with me. Because my second mantra is, I will change the world. And together, we can do it. Thank you.